I did a class with a group of dreamers earlier and did a teaching piece about one way to work with your dreams and thought it would be good to share here. There's a practice at the end that you can, like kind of an assignment that you can work with yourself. So hang on to the end and hopefully that'll be helpful also. So here we go. I think in terms of a teaching piece today, I wanted to follow up with what we talked about on Sunday about approaching a dream from a certain state of mind, like noticing that tendency to figure the dream out and not trying to override that because oftentimes we can't override it. But I think the practice is to let that be off to the side and then come to the dream from this other space. I love what you said, Miriam, about kind of being in a dream state, meeting the dream. And I've been thinking about that a lot. We talked about it in the practitioner's class on Monday also. I did a quick teaching. And I think one of the things I was thinking about today is actually the overall practice in a way. It's not even just about not figuring out the dreams. It's about walking through the world, learning to walk through the world in that, whether you call it a dream state or some other state, I think most of us get taught to walk through the world in a kind of dissociated state, alienated from the heart and soul of who we are. We learn to experience the world in a certain way that I'm not sure is actually natural. My old teacher used to sometimes say was that, being in dreams is a little bit like being in a psychotic state. I've talked a lot about it being a psychedelic state, but it's only psychedelic in the sense that we normally live in we experience the world in a certain state that I'm not sure is natural. Children are kind of naturally, they're not psychedelic, they just are who they are. They're alive, they're sensitive, they're in their feelings, they aren't in this black and white version of reality. They aren't in judgment, they're in the immediacy of like something hurts, they cry, they get their boo-boo kiss, they move on. There's not it's not this judgmental, dissociated, alienated way of viewing the world. And I think part of what's great about working this way with dreams is it's not just about how we work with dreams, it's actually about practicing, like, can I approach the dream from this state, but can I also have the dream help me to live in this other state of being? Can I have the dream help me to live in a deeper experience of who I am? Can I have the dream help me experience what it's like to be in my heart and soul? And it's not like I'm not using my head, but not running my life from this more dissociated headspace, judgmental, black and white. Can I live in a more creative version of reality? Which I think is actually what reality is. I think we're taught that that's not what it is. And I think that's why dreams are so confusing to us, is because we're so used to experiencing the world a certain way that we have these dreams. And it's really hard for us to process because we don't think metaphorically. We don't think in images. We don't process. We're often not in our feelings, and dreams come to us in a whole different language, a whole different way of being. So I just wanted to add that to what we talked about on Sunday, and also for today to just keep being with that practice. Like, can I approach a dream from this? Can I notice my tendency to figure it out? Can I notice my tendency to be in that more judgmental, black and white sort of space? Can I step back and listen to the dream, be in conversation with the dream? Literally be like, what is this dream trying to tell me? Which often is a question that people don't ask. They try to figure out the dream instead of actually listening to the dream. I think there's several ways we talked about Sunday of doing that. One is to be in a meditative state, or be in a dream state, or be in a prayer state, or be in a creative state. Or for me, it's like I can try to touch into the place that I feel when I walk in the woods. So the other thing we can do, most of what I talked about on Sunday, is we talked about kind of like stepping back from that immediate process of figuring it out. Also like stepping back and kind of like looking at the dream, witnessing it, not analyzing it, but kind of being in relationship to it. The other possibility is that if it's a dream that's not like some violent, traumatic dream that's overwhelming, you probably don't want to do this with that kind of a dream. But if it's a dream with a place of love or a place that you might want to explore, The other possibility to step out of our normal way of processing things is actually to step into the dream. Either to be yourself in the dream, like, well, how is it for me to step back into that place? So I had a dream a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, where I was like in this battle. I was with a small group of other soldiers, and we were in this battle with this other group of people. And what's it like for me, instead of being like, well, why are you in this fight? Or what is this about? Or blah, blah, blah. What's it actually like to be in that energy? What's it like to let all the kind of questions that come up be set aside and just be in that energy? Okay, what is it like for me, who's not a person who usually is comfortable running around with a gun, not comfortable with any kind of conflict? Like, what's it like for me to be in that energy? What's it like for me to have people at my back in that energy? You know, if I was comfortable and I wanted to know more, like, well, what is it? How am I under attack? What am I fighting? I could also step into being one of the soldiers on the other side. I could be like, okay, well, what's going on here? Am I in some fight I maybe don't even need to be in? What is this attack? What is this battle? You know, maybe it's just helpful to know what I'm up against. If it is something hostile and I'm not like in some fight that I don't need to be in, but I can literally explore it. I can literally step into the energy that I'm in the dream, or I could step into another part of the dream that I'm just to get information in a way, just to like embody that place and be like, okay, what would it be like? You know, and again, I wouldn't do this. Didn't feel like a very, like, I wasn't terrified in the dream. It's an interesting energy in that way. It didn't feel like, it felt like this real grounded kind of battle energy that actually felt like good energy in some way. So it doesn't feel scary for me to step. Now, if it's a dream where you're feeling chased and you're really afraid of being hurt, you know, you might want to be more tender and look at it more like we talked about on Sunday. Like, well, what is that hurt? And how do I find support to be with that hurt? Yeah, all of that. Anybody have any questions about any of that? Or anything they want to add to it? Let's do writing reflection prompts. Yeah, I would just take a dream moment and you know, I guess the suggestion for today is if you have a moment that it feels like it works for you to go in and embody, I'd encourage you to do that. See what it's like to literally like take a breath and be like, okay, what's it like for me to be either in myself in the dream or in another being in the dream? It could even be an animal, or, you know, I've even sometimes, you know, this be a like house or something. And it's like, well, what is this house? It's like, why is this house in my dream? You know, like you can ask questions and be with any part of your dream. Again, the idea is to get out of our normal way of experiencing things and see what comes up from this other place. Is that enough of a prompt for folks? Okay. I have 24 after the hour, so 24, 26, 36. We'll come back at 36 after the hour, wherever you are. Thanks, everybody.